Hey, welcome everybody. Sorry about that. I clicked the mouse when I was trying to move it and reset the countdown, and well, I'm just an amateur. What can I say? But hey, for all of you, welcome tonight. Welcome to the safety meeting. Just a place where we can gather together and chat and talk about, safety things. I try to have a decent subject every couple of weeks. And my name's Kevin. I'm a health and safety professional, and this is my channel, Provoking Safety. I started it back when the plague first started, just as a way to keep my finger in health and safety and do health and safety related things when contracts and so forth were pretty much dried up. And so I thought the idea I would stream, add a stream to it, not just the YouTube videos, but add a stream to it, and just the opportunity to gather together and help to build a community of fellow safety influencers and people that are like-minded, and even if you're not like-minded, just a place where you can gather and talk about health and safety. Now, we're going to get on to it, don't worry, but tonight wanted to talk about just the fact that seasoned safety professionals, they will tell you the best way to affect workplace change as far as health and safety initiatives, or to launch a new part of a safety program, or any other kind of processes within the safety program, is to have a robust health and safety culture. Or at minimum, there's a health and safety culture in place that just requires this little nudge, a little push, a little shift. So the organization's ready for this change. I mean, let's face it, let's be serious. A healthy health and safety culture makes it way easier to be a health and safety professional. It really does. And it really does to help to have a bunch of like-minded individuals that want to push safety along. But the question needs to be asked, what do you do if your safety culture is floundering? Or worse yet, it's not there at all. It's checked out. It's essentially dead. Maybe you might not even realize it. Maybe you might not even notice that it's fading before your eyes. Maybe you're in denial. So in this episode, what I thought we would do is have a look at the indicators, things that you can see within your organization or small departments or whatever the case, that are indicators of a suffering safety culture in the workplace, and some of the probable causes of an unhealthy health and safety culture, maybe some of the results as well. We're going to explore those things, like what leads to health and safety apathy at both the management and employee levels, the disinterest in performing the basic safety tasks, and of course the big one, why there might not be any participation in the workplace health and safety program or the health and safety management system altogether. And it does happen. Honestly, it does. You find that apathy starts to approach, and often apathy or total disinterest or disregard for the health and safety program is usually kind of indicative that the health and safety culture is faltering and headed down the tubes. So yeah, but before we get into it too far, let's talk about the chat rules really quick. So first off, number one, your interaction is awesome. Feel free to leave a comment after the stream is done if you want, or hop into the chat. Participate. It's what this whole process is about. It's like virtual networking, if you will. Participate. Introductions are nice. Like, hey, my name's Kevin. I'm from Calgary. Frank from Lower Slobobia, or whatever. If you want to include what you do for a living, that's great too. You don't have to. Now, the other thing is asking and answering. Your participation is always nice. By all means, if I don't get to something in the chat, you know the answer, by all means, you just go ahead and throw in an answer, throw in a comment. Your knowledge and your opinions count. We have to realize, though, that others don't have this veritable cornucopia of knowledge that you do. This vast accumulation of knowledge. Some of us just start out and we're fresh and we accumulate knowledge as we go along. So on that note, please be civil. No name calling, no insults, no ad hominem attacks. Just be nice to each other. Yeah. So, yeah, in talking about this, before we get too far, I'd like to just let you know that in this episode, we're going to do things a bit differently. It's kind of going to be a two-parter. Not because I'm just scrambling for the watch time. Believe you me, I enjoy it. I need 4,000 hours to be monetized, and I'm 800 and something right now, so I got a ways to go. But it's not about that. When I started researching and doing this whole process, I quickly realized that, man, this could go on for a couple hours, and I value everybody's time. My time, I feel, is kind of cheap, but I value everybody else's. So I try to keep these streams down to an hour in total from the intro part all the way to the end, so that I'm not keeping you away from your families, other jobs, or anything else like that. So not to worry, we're going to talk about the problems. We're going to talk about some of the issues that cause bad safety cultures. And then next episode, it's not going to be all storm clouds and bad news. We're going to follow up, and we're going to have some solutions, some strategies. But it's important to understand that you got to know the symptoms. Any medical professional, whether they be an emergency medical professional like a paramedic or a medical professional like a nurse or a doctor, they will tell you that they can't diagnose. They can't tell you the problem until they understand all the symptoms and observe the signs that the patient's exhibiting. So let's have a look at the signs and symptoms of a troubled safety culture. But before we get on too far to that, kind of what I'd like to do is just have a quick look at a couple news articles, if you wouldn't mind. So and I've got a reason behind it, so just bear with me. Number one is, here in Calgary, we're headed into another bit of a heat wave on the weekend. It's going to be short, but it's going to start likely tomorrow afternoon and then head through the weekend. Now, everybody talks about hydration and making sure that you get in out of the heat, get in under the shade, have these opportunities at rest. But I'm here to tell you, extreme temperatures have another effect, whether they're really cold or really hot. They have another effect. And what happens is our attention is divided from what we're doing. So a lot of times, just like this article says, and by the way, let me know in the chat or in the comments if you want links to the articles posted. By all means, I will. But I use them just to emphasize a point more than anything else. But the articles are fascinating. And if you want to read further, just let me know, either in the chat or in the comments. But as the author of this article says, that hotter temperatures also have, and the data shows that they affect other things than just falling off a ladder or whatever. And he says here that heat affects the cognitive function too. Having been in a lot of different industries, I used to work in the logging industry, and I'm here to tell you that extreme temperatures, whether it be hot or cold, do affect the way you think and do things. So it's important when you're out there working in the heat or working in the extreme cold, if it takes you a little longer to think about what you're doing and a little longer to perform those tasks, then you know what? Do so. Just because it's not worth it. Rushing is not worth it, and it's not worth having an accident. And like I said, a lot of times people look at too hot, making you too hot, and looking at heat exhaustion or heat stroke as one of the issues, or the same thing as frostbite and mild hypothermia or severe hypothermia with extreme cold. But those, as I said, the extreme temperatures also cause accidents because of the cognitive dysfunction. So just a little bit of a thing to note. Now, the other thing is, and this article is from an insurance, not an insurance organization, but from an HR organization. But they took the time to point out the top 8 causes of injury in the workplace. And you know what? It doesn't really matter if it's from the United States, Europe, Canada, wherever. All of these fall into the same batch of categories. And it doesn't really matter. Most of the demographics that you deal with the exception of executives like accountants and so forth, fall into these issues, and they have issues with this. And overexertion, bodily reaction, in other words, soft tissue injuries from straining, etc. But the one I want to note is the one on the very bottom, is fires and explosions. A lot of times these occur from either one of three things or a combination. One is neglect, and you're neglecting to service the safety equipment, service the fire extinguishers. The other one is apathy and disinterest, and nobody is interested in making sure that all of the safeguards are protected. And then finally, number three is incorrect and non-compliance issues such as storage of flammable materials. And the sad thing is modern buildings have got to the point where they're so well protected against fire and explosions, but it's the fact that the more that we've done to protect them, the worse that we've made things. And honestly, that's a sad commentary when you really get down to it. It is. It's not very good. Oops, lost my camera there for a sec, pardon me. But I often wonder what happens, what leads up to this. And that's part of what tonight is about, because a lot of times a safety culture issue is part of it. And apathy comes from a poor safety culture, and disinterest comes from a poor safety culture. A lot of times what we do and how we see things in the job site and in the workplace is affected right directly by our safety culture. But before we start, I just thought I'd do something and maybe just to lighten things up and lighten the mood up a little bit. And that's sort of like maybe use a cross between, the classic Letterman Top 10 and Foxworthy's You Know When. So I want to look at the top 10 signs you know your safety culture is in the toilet, or your safety culture is dying when. So number 10, you're told on day one that your employer's looking for a desk or some office space for you because the safety position never lasts long, but you know what? They're honestly hoping it's different this time. Okay, or you're introduced to a senior executive and he says, "Hey, you're the new safety guy. I got a tip for you. Don't buy, rent." Okay, number 8. When you're outside, you notice that the days since the last accident sign is brand new. Yeah, that one's kind of worrisome. You're told the safety program's been Xeroxed and it's in a binder in the basement, hoping you can update it. That should be alarming. You find out that your predecessor is cleaning windshields on the main street, and in his own words, he's having the time of his life. You meet the HR director, and that person lets you know that they thought your position should have been half-time and your workload is going to be under review starting today. You likely are dreading those other duties as assigned. You notice that where the safety committees are held, the safety committee meetings are held, they're held in a room that doubles as event furniture storage. When you go looking, and this brings me to point 3, or the 3 of the top 10, there's no minutes for the safety committee meetings, ever. Finally, the last couple. Instead of a new hire safety orientation, Instead of a new hire safety orientation, the staff plays something like a hockey pool. They just want to see how long the new guy's going to last. But you get really worried when you notice that the odds go up for days and weeks. Anyway, that was number 1. Now, I know they're my attempt at being funny, but believe it or not, I've actually experienced one of those. If you want to know which one, leave me, just let me know in the chat or the comments, and I'll answer it next episode. If nobody leaves a chat or anything in the comments, I won't answer. But seriously, there are some visible indicators to a safety culture that's suffering, possibly dying. But however, 2 things to note. Number 1 is no safety culture is beyond repair. No safety culture can't be resurrected and revived. That's the honest truth. The only way is if the company goes defunct and everybody's terminated, gets their pink slips and severance checks, and off you go and the company's shut down. Then you know the safety culture can't be revived. So that's a bit of good news, and we're going to talk about that next week, or next episode, pardon me. However, a safety culture. Now, a safety culture it's a collection of beliefs, perceptions, and values that employees share in relation to the risks within an organization or the workplace, or the workplace community. Now, you may have noticed that I've worked really hard in the last year. I've been on YouTube for a year to start using words like community, safety influencers. I'm working to build a community. It isn't about subscribers and making millions on YouTube, that's for sure. And yeah, I don't know that it's ever going to happen. Not saying it's not. I really hope it does, but you know what? Doubt it. But the truth is, in a workplace, it becomes almost like a little community. And it's what kind of community do you want it to be? Now, last episode, I talked about an article in Business Industry Magazine, and a really excellent article, but it wasn't what... and I'm going to be talking more about some points in the article later on in this episode. But what I wanted to stress here is that when a story is repeated often enough from one worker to another or through a collection of workers, it becomes a shared belief. And shared beliefs are basically a culture. And that's what it is when you get right down to it. Shared beliefs are a culture. There's no two ways about it. So you have to realize that when you're working and doing things as a safety professional or a person that's tasked with safety, what you do to affect the perception of workers starts to affect their belief. And so let's jump into it a bit further. Let's have a look, and I've prepared a little bit of a slide thing here. Here we go. Look at that. There we go. And these are basically the signs and symptoms that can tell you that you're leading up to or you're in the midst of a suffering safety culture. And honestly, there's none of them are in a priority. None of them are in the order of importance. These are just observations that I've made, either starting within an organization or seeing things come up and having to deal with them within an organization. And one of them I found is autocratic leadership. And it doesn't matter if it's right at the very top at the CEO or in senior management, middle management, frontline managers. Autocratic leadership, one of the things I've found is usually the influence that your CEO has or your senior management, executive management has, tends to trickle down. Now, I can remember a CEO of an organization saying, change is here. It's like a freight train. You have no choice but to hop on. Now, this, of course, has an open ending. Now, mind you, this quote is anecdotal. It was said before I joined the organization. I was just told what was said. I don't have any reason to disbelieve what it was said, that's for sure. And the fact that I heard it from numerous people. But the idea is if you don't hop on, kind of leaves it open as what happens if you don't hop on. Will you get run over? What do you mean? And I think you can figure out the difficulty I had with some safety initiatives. Basically, what I'm illustrating here is these types of leaders want to facilitate change, but change only on their terms, only in their timing, only the way that they see fit, etc., etc. I think you get the picture. But the problem is, as I said, this trickles down, and it's noted, you can find that it's likely noted at all levels in the hierarchy, and assumptions become the norm, or assumptions are made that with you as the safety professional or you with the safety as the safety committee or safety representative, whatever role you're playing with health and safety, is that safety is only going to be on your terms. It's no longer going to be a community thing, or maybe it never was a community thing. And so that's the problem, is that there's no idea of authorship leading to ownership, leading to commitment. It's just your way and your way only. Now, don't worry. I'm going to talk about solutions next episode. But the next thing, beyond autocratic leadership, is this safety or else attitude. The idea of punitive motivation. And I've seen it a few times. You might have even experienced it. And I've seen it. I'll tell you one tale. Working with a lumber manufacturer back in British Columbia, and then working with some of the different employees, I can remember an employee saying, no, we got to do this or we're going to get written up. And then, no, don't cross that chain, you'll get fired. And no, if you don't do this, we'll get suspended. And every safety initiative or every precaution that they were to take, it wasn't because it was for their own good or it was going to help them out or anything like that. It was do it or something bad was going to happen. There was no idea of safety processes being done to avoid negative consequences. And I'm not talking damage or injury. These were done because of wanting to avoid performance management and progressive discipline, like being written up, suspended, or termination. In other words, they were doing safety because safety was dealt with more stick than carrot. And yes, it's always good to build a culture of fear and consequences. The next one is being transparent like mud. And honestly, I've seen a lot of organizations do it, and I've worked for a lot. And there's a lot of organizations that seem to think that knowledge is power. And it's true, knowledge is power. But they also seem to think it needs to be hoarded from the great unwashed. This lack of transparency leads to gossip, which leads to untruths, and then these untruths start to be this perception. The perception of a few things. Number one, what they think is true and isn't true. Number two is that you're hiding something or not telling the whole story. It leads to a constant why culture when it comes to safety. Why are we doing this? Is it for my good, actually, or is it for another reason? I want you to think about all of the controversy that you see in the news right now around vaccines, vaccinations, origin of the virus, etc. And a lot of this has been caused by confusion and a lack of transparency. Not saying that everybody needs to know everything, but that same thing translates at work as well. So if you don't have to tell anybody anything, don't mention it. But don't mention only half the story. Be transparent about what you have to do, because otherwise it leads to, well, I just said it, a culture of why. Now, yeah, the next one. And it's as simple as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and on and on and on. I don't know what it is with organizations and safety departments, safety professionals, but it seems that there's groups of folks that love bureaucracy and the need to add complexity and difficulty to things. I don't know whether they think it makes them look smarter or it adds, it feels that they add value to themselves. I'm not sure what the process is. And in fact, I'll give you an example. When I was with an organization, we had to deal with hazard assessments, and I was brand new and went to a meeting with one of the departments, and they just were very adamant that they were not doing the hazard assessments, which of course is contrary to legislation where I am and a lot of different legislation in Canada. But when I started looking at the process, I couldn't blame them. It was difficult. I'm a safety professional and I could barely figure it out. It seemed very time-consuming and overwhelming. And honestly, when you think about it, that's only part of your job. You still have a job to do. So here's the question I want to ask, is if you cannot understand it, do you really want to be part of it? And once again, if it's too difficult and time-consuming, do you want to do it? So yeah, these are things that lead to why do I want to bother with health and safety if it's too difficult or I can't figure it out? Just a thought. Now, one of the other things that I see and run into lots, and it's these attempts for fast fixes for long-term problems. I have one saying, and that's this. If it took a long time to get this way, it cannot be fixed quickly. Think about this. Rome wasn't built in a day, so once again, same thing. If it took a long time and your safety culture went down this gradual hill, not like swimming over a waterfall, but down a gradual hill, and you're somewhere down here, you can't necessarily think that you're going to fix it overnight. And so what's going to happen is problems that people think that can be fixed fast often results in failure or only partial correction. Now, it leads to a distrust in the process. It leads to a distrust of the people trying to do the fixing. It leads to a distrust to the people that okayed or gave permission, such as the executive and management. And it removes confidence from the whole thing. And so what happens is, really and truthfully, do you want to ask, does anybody want to be a part of a job that's only half done? Now, it becomes that common belief and perception thing I was talking about earlier. It also leads to this, and I'm pretty sure you've likely heard this before. We've tried this before, it didn't work. And so, once again, these tried this before, it didn't work. The question always has to be asked, was the problem assessed properly, and was the process put in place that actually is going to fix it, and the time permitted and allowed? So once again, fast-term fixes for long-term problems lead to more problems. Now, I talked about this a bit in another past live stream, and once again, it's one of those things that can wreck a safety culture, wreck a workplace culture altogether. But it's the corporate politics of health and safety. Now, realistically, and I've got the saying there, safety gets played like a trump card, but ends up sounding like a poorly tuned guitar instead. And that's absolutely the truth. I can't tell you time and time again where I've seen senior management and executives or even middle managers trying to get a process through and doing it with the claim that it's for safety. Oh, air quotes, it's for safety. And realistically, there's not even a hint, the slightest little remnant of safety there at all. And so what happens is safety gets to be viewed as a political tool. It becomes viewed as something that's no more than a political tool and used to leverage to get for some person to get their own way and look good. And now what happens as a result of that is there's a distrust of the safety process. And really and truthfully, we're just doing this to make this person look good, or this person wants to achieve their ends or get their budget through, or whatever the case. So safety is used more as a lever, and there's no apparent value to it. And what does that do to your safety culture? Really and truthfully, if safety's not being focused where it should be, then obviously the people that you're wanting to focus on safety aren't going to be looking there either. That's the truth. Now, the safety committee unbalanced. Now, I'm not talking that they all need medication and should maybe be hospitalized. That's not the case. But I'm talking about is poor composition of the health and safety committee. And after the video's all done, I'll leave a card that'll be up in that corner up there for a link to the series, and I'll put one in the description as well, to the series I've been doing on health and safety committees, because they're very valuable to your health and safety culture. Number one, they give you a good pulse and a set of vital signs for what the safety culture's like, if they're made up properly. I can remember in Alberta, they switched the requirement, and safety committees had to be joint safety committees. And really and truthfully, the people that only had them to begin with for a certificate of recognition. Some, if they were made to have them because the director of safety required it. But other than that, a lot of organizations didn't have them. Those that did, a lot of them I found were strictly management. They were all made up of management. And that becomes a problem, because it's supposed to be a joint health and safety committee. It's supposed to be made up equally of workers and management. And the idea is they represent and guide management and guide the employer on health and safety initiatives. So if it's not composed properly and management heavy, or if it's dysfunctional, I mean, I've seen them where it's something like a thriller movie filled with intrigue and a sordid history. Okay, yeah, I know, too much drama, but overbalanced by management or worse management only. But other cases where I've walked in and there's been such infighting and separation between the health and safety, the representatives from the worker side and the representatives from the management side. And I've seen it both in union and non-union environments. I have. And usually it's indicative of more underlying workplace issues. But what happens is nothing gets done. There's distrust and uncooperative atmosphere. And really and truthfully, it doesn't help a safety culture. Now, a lot of times the dysfunctional committee is usually the result of other underlying workplace issues. But once again, it can also start at the committee and then trickle upwards and outwards from the committee to the other stakeholders. So really and truthfully, having a well-functioning safety committee is a good thing. Next one is a question of ethics. It doesn't matter who it is in the organization. But too often when management or executive is outright lying and they're caught in their lie, but there's no contrition, no regret, no attempt at self-redemption, it's just ignored. Well, then what happens is once again, it's a trickle-down thing. And management and frontline management can get seen that way. And as a safety professional, if you're part of the management pool or you're excluded or you're not seen as one of the working staff, then you know what? You're going to get tarred and painted with that brush too. So whenever there's a question of ethics, honestly, the safety culture falters, and it has a problem with that. So I'll talk more about how to fix it if somebody else is being unethical and you don't want to be a part of it in the next episode. So just bear with me. I know this is a lot of storm clouds, a lot of gray clouds, but there's a reason behind it. You have to know all of the symptoms and signs before you can begin the treatments. Now, the next one is disingenuous leadership. And I've got the thing in italics. We here at XYZ Company pride ourselves on commitment to health and safety, as long as it doesn't include me. Now, you know what? Honestly, studies have shown, and there's conservative studies that show that 30% of communication is nonverbal. There's other studies that will show as much as 90%. Typically, majority of the studies show between 70 and 90%. So, you know what? Honestly, it doesn't matter where you are in the hierarchy. Just give me a sec. I got to get a drink of water. If you're not honest about how you feel about health and safety, whether you're the safety professional, and I hope you're passionate about it if you're the safety professional, you're the safety representative, or you're a manager and safety falls under you, or you're a senior manager and safety falls under you, all the way up to the CEO. If you don't care about safety, it doesn't matter what you say and how you say it and how you try to smile, people are going to pick up that you're lying. That's just it. It's just it. And in fact, I've seen speeches done by CEOs where they look so uncomfortable, you can tell they were wishing they were somewhere else. I recall one particular speech where pretty much the whole entire organization's watching, and the person that's up there speaking is looking like they're doing the pee-pee dance. It's like body language is everything. So regardless of where you are, you need to be honest about it. And I'm going to have some tricks and strategies that you can help your CEO with, or your senior manager, whoever you notice really doesn't, well, I don't know. Will I get like censored if I say doesn't give a rat's ass? I guess it's kind of late, isn't it? But anyway, if they don't care about health and safety, there's some other tricks that you can use. And now, the final one is you. You, the safety professional, you, the member of the safety committee, you, the safety representative, the consultant, you, the employee that just is part of the organization. So what are you doing? A lot of times, and you know what? I wasn't a good kid. I wasn't a good teenager. Heck, I wasn't even a good young adult. That's the truth. It seemed I didn't really have to work hard to find trouble. It found me. Or I didn't make enough effort to turn away from it or walk away from it. Not sure. But you know what? That sort of mindset can follow you into the workplace as well. And so are you getting caught up where you don't have to be? Are you getting caught up as in office gossip, poor politics? Are you facilitating that executive that's trying to sell something as safety? The other thing that you're going to find is I have a t-shirt and it says you can't fix stupid. And it's more sarcasm than anything else. I just wear it because my sense of humor. But you can't have a negative outlook. And so you have to ask. And a friend of mine, she's going to appreciate this. You have to ask yourself, are you going to be Eeyore or are you going to be Tigger? And it's the absolute truth. You have to have a positive outlook and you have to take a positive spin on things. As I mentioned before, these are the main points. They're not in any order of importance, any special idea of which is worse or which is better, but they're all indicative of a failing safety culture. And it's important. And so before we take off and sign off, I'm going to ask you, and I didn't want it to be long tonight, a few more minutes, because I also want to talk about a bit of a feel-good article I found as well. But I want you, before the next episode, do me a favor. Have a look inward and look, do an introspective study of your organization. You don't need to mention names. I don't need to hear them by email or read them by email. You don't need to talk about them in the chat or anything else. But just look at it and consider, do you see these traits? Do you see what's going on? Look at yourself. Do you feel about anything like this? And don't worry, if you note these symptoms, note these signs within the organization, there's nothing wrong with that. I have yet to find a perfect organization. There's nothing perfect. But what I need you to do is look at this, because if we figure out what's wrong, then we can figure out some strategies that you can apply that you might be able to fix it. Yeah. Now, as I promised, a little bit of a feel-good story here, and it's this one right here. Wrong one, hold on. There we go. And a Quebec woman here, and this is neat. As a lot of people, and this is where I'm thankful for the news, because the news and media prompt societal culture. And so, and this is what I just want to leave you on before I go, is I want you to picture if the news was behaving more responsible, and instead of saying things like, we had this many new cases today, but saying, compared to last year, or it looks like we're heading with a downward trend. Hopefully the statistics are that way. But we want to take note of a few things. Vaccinations are still happening. People are still coming in to get vaccinated. It appears that vaccine hesitancy is on a downward trend. More and more people are seeing the necessity and the importance of vaccines. And that's what this article did. It talked about, and this woman was absolutely afraid. She went to, just let me find it here. Well, I can't find it, and I'll leave the article if you're interested. But the whole thing is she went 10 different times to go get her vaccine, and 10 different times she drove away. She would get on a bus or drive in her car and just head away. And then finally she went in. But this article tells how she overcame it. And like I said, if you want I can post it in the comments or whatever. Let me know in the chat or the comments, and I'll post the article. But the thing is, the other point is what's the message that you're trying to get across? Even if it's dark, is there a silver lining somewhere that you can talk about and you can post and you can comment on? Because realistically, it's not about always sad, always bad news. I know bad news sells. I really do. And scary news sells. It seems that fear and that sell. But as a safety professional or a person tasked with health and safety, is there a better way? That's what you got to ask yourself. Is there a better way? Right? Yeah. So, as I said before, and I've said a few times, do me a favor. If you haven't done so already, click that subscribe button, ding the bell, you'll get notified of new content, and one of them is you won't miss a live stream. You'll get notified. I try to live stream every second Wednesday. I try to have the notice up as soon as possible. I admit I was a little bit lax. I also owe you an apology. This one is about workplace culture, and I'd started a series quite a while ago on workplace culture, but I realized that there was so much more. It was sort of a chicken and an egg thing. So I realized I had to do a bit more. So I will be continuing shortly the series on workplace culture. So yeah, take note of that. Do me a favor though, if you have an opinion, by all means, leave a comment. I appreciate all of them. Let me know in the chat what you thought. I appreciate all of the input I get. Yeah. But do me a favor, until we see each other again, be a safety influencer, be a leader. Don't just think about safety, don't just talk about safety, but in everything you do, wherever you are, do safety. Yeah, until we see each other again, take care. Bye for now. Oh, and I really hope we do see each other again. Yes, honestly, bye for now.